It is 1965, and four boys are about to set out on the adventure of a lifetime. The plan is simple. The four of them would sneak off to the Devil's Hole, an underground lake that goes down hundreds of feet, and have the time of their lives. When night came, they loaded their trucks with scuba diving tanks, skipped over the fence protecting the hole, and dashed straight for it. That would be the last time anyone would see two of the four boys. Their disappearance would draw national attention to the haunting reality of the Devil's Hole. It would shake the entire town to its foundations and show just how little we know of the world we live in. In this video, we will explore the daunting tragedy and mystery of the lost divers of the Devil's Hole. This 50-year-old mystery gripped the nation and still has not been solved to this day. This is a graphic account of the tragedy, so viewer discretion is advised. The Devil's Hole is sinisterly named, and for good reason. No one can tell how deep the hole goes. Man can build rocket ships and robots that leave our solar system, but no living scientist can hazard an accurate guess as to how deep the Devil's Hole is. It is one of those wonders of creation that makes you wonder if deeper powers are at work. Before Europeans settled in America, the area that hosts the mouth of the hole was inhabited by the Timbisha people. The Timbisha told tales of water babies that would swallow children who stayed near the hole for too long. They also believed that a shaman with great healing powers traveled the deserts of America through the underwater channels of the hole. Whatever the truth may be, it is clear that David Rose, Paul Giancontieri, and Jack and Bill Alter were not thinking of any of that when they decided to explore the hole themselves. The first person to really explore the hole had done it years ago, and he had brought exciting news. According to Jim Houts, the explorer, the first channel beneath the pond at the mouth of the hole went straight down 160 feet. After that, you enter a beautiful cave-like area that is the most fascinating depth he had ever dived to. He said he continued diving to 315 feet, and still there was no end in sight. It was like infinity. There was no bottom, and it seemed like the water was limitless. This really should not be the case, since the hole is in the middle of the desert. Yet Hout said the water simply never ended. This was the sort of report that excited the doomed group of four. A year after Houts published his reports of what he'd seen, the boys, none older than 20, hatched their plan to see the depths of the hole themselves. Even the government realized how dangerous the hole was at the time and required a diving permit for anyone to enter. Maybe if the boys had sought the diving permit, they would have avoided the tragedy. 6 months before the incident, Paul's sister Paula had married David, so the two of them were brothers-in-law. They had been tied by the bonds of family and friendship, and it seemed they were destined to also be tied by the bonds of tragedy and pain. Since the boys did not have a diving permit, they had no choice but to carry out their plan at night. So that night, the four of them got into a vehicle and drove to the hole about 90 miles northwest of Las Vegas. They arrived safely, climbed the fence, came down on the other side, and went straight to the hole. The water at the hole is about 92 degrees year-round, the same warmth as the human body. This meant that the boys didn't have to worry about the cold. It was going to be a jolly good dive in the middle of the night. It was the sort of adventure that would lead to great stories in a decade or two. Maybe they would even make a tradition of it, returning to the hole every so often to dive again. Or maybe they would find some precious jewel that would make them rich men. It is difficult to think that they would have considered the hole to be their final resting place, but that is what it eventually became. The boys strapped up and got their scuba dive tanks ready. It was time to dive. The boys were doing something illegal, so they needed someone to watch out. This task fell to Jack Alter, Bill's brother. The other boys, Paul, Bill, and David, dived in, and so began that sorry adventure. Shortly after the dive, Bill realized that his air was getting low. This meant he would have to go back to the surface, and maybe that would signal the end of his journey. Once he realized this, he motioned to the other two divers that he was going back up. At the mouth of the hole, Bill and David emerged, but there was no Paul. He had been with them as they came back to the top, so they waited a bit. Maybe he got tired swimming, or maybe he found something interesting. But after waiting a while and not seeing Paul, Bill and David dived back into the hole to look for him. They searched frantically inside the water, but saw no sign of Paul. After becoming exhausted and noting the low amount of air that was left in their tanks, they came up again. This time Bill was the first to emerge. He waited a while for David, but David never came. Paul and David had disappeared and would never be seen again. Bill dived back in to find Paul, going as far as 175 feet, but he never did. The chaos was immediate. The brothers Bill and Jack got into their cars and drove all night to get help. They contacted rangers and a search and rescue team from the sheriff. Reporters were soon at the site. The sheriff and others told reporters there was a slim chance the boys could still be alive. There were air pockets in the underground tunnels that the boys could use once their air ran out. Before long, a team of divers led by Jim Houts, the original diver who'd shared his experience diving at the hole, dove into the hole. The sun was scorching, and they worked all day to see if they could find the boys. By the end of the day, Houts realized the boys were gone forever. Not even their bodies could be recovered. If they were dead, which they most certainly were, their bodies would be at the bottom of the hole. And Houts, who dived farther than he ever had, couldn't even reach the bottom. It was functionally bottomless. The town could not believe it. As Houts and his men searched, Paula, David's wife and Paul's sister, knelt at the mouth of the hole's pond and wept. Her husband and her brother had been taken in one day. It was the kind of pain that could drive a sane person mad. Due to the tragedy, Devil's Hole suddenly became popular. People could understand someone drowning in an ocean or lake, but drowning in a pit in the desert? That seemed impossible to imagine. People couldn't even describe the hole properly, and the fact that it was called Devil's Hole made the tragedy even more notorious. Some called it an extinct geyser, and others said it was a skylight to the water table. It was like something out of a scary story. But that was not the only time Devil's Hole would gain national fame. A few years after the incident with the divers, Charles Manson entered the national consciousness. The Los Angeles cult leader had kept a harem of women and then influenced them into setting in motion a bogus race war by killing pregnant movie star Sharon Tate and some of her companions in their home. This incident, as you might expect, did not actually kick off a race war. Instead, it kicked off a massive manhunt. The police started looking for Charles Manson everywhere they could, and rumors say that the crazy man thought Devil's Hole was somewhere he could hide with his family. How he planned to do that, no one knows. Either way, Manson was eventually found hiding beneath a sink in a ranch a few months later. Somehow I think that was a much safer hideout than Devil's Hole. It has now been years since the disappearance of Paul and David, and we are no closer to figuring out just how deep Devil's Hole goes. We have better tools now, and even those tools cannot tell us exactly where you touch the ground in the water. The farthest anyone has gone into the hole since then is 436 feet. Explorers, even at that depth, said they saw that the hole went down at least 500 feet. Despite being so deep into the water, they still did not see the bottom of the cave. However, we are not totally lost as to why the hole is that deep. Cameras set up in the hole recently captured what researchers think is tsunamic activity. The water receded from the mouth and surged about 4 feet. They believe this activity was connected to an earthquake that happened in Mexico around the same time. If this is true, it means the hole may somehow be connected to the movement of tectonic plates. Other scientists have said that the cave itself must have formed after an ancient fissure beneath a lake, thousands of years old, collapsed on itself. Whatever the cause, the lake still holds the secrets to a tragedy. And perhaps when humanity finally reaches the bottom of the hole, we will find the bodies of Paul and David, and maybe put to rest the mystery surrounding this tragedy. Thank you so much for watching. In this video, we took a deep dive into Devil's Hole and the secrets it holds. Now we want to hear from you. How deep do you think the hole is? 1,000 feet? Or maybe just 501? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. And hopefully, we'll see you in the next one.